Greetings, YouTubers and fellow My Little Pony bronies and Pegasisters alike. This review episode, I'm going to review the fourth season of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and the first one to kind of not only just focus on the young girls that the audience was meant for, but also the bronies and Pegasisters of our age group as well. And I think they did a spectacular job doing that, as well as continuing the story that began with Season 1 and ended right where Season 3, picking up where the Season 3 finale left off, with Twilight Sparkle becoming a princess and an alicorn in the process. This season, again, being the, kind of changed in its format a little bit, focuses on a story arc about the ponies on the hunt for keys and their, elemental talents or so being put to the test, like the loyalty of Rainbow Dash, the honesty of Applejack, the generosity of Rarity, and so on. It's just putting all the main six to the test while they're trying to find these keys to unlock this mysterious chest that was grown under the Tree of Harmony. With that being said, I guess I'll start reviewing the episodes. Well, so far I could already tell you that it's currently my third favorite season so far. It might end up being my fourth favorite season, depending on how Season 7 does next year. But so far it's my third favorite My Little Pony season, and like I said, I think they did a great job when they adjusted the format for all demographics of fans. And I think the stories have since then have been, better, if not phenomenally better, than how they were before. Not saying that the first three seasons were bad. I just think, again, Season 4 onward was just incredibly better and incredibly well done, in my opinion. So for the Season 4 premiere, Princess Twilight Sparkle. And she tries to adjust to her new power, to her new abilities and duties. I don't know why my nose itches all of a sudden. Alright, she tries to adjust to the fact that she's now an alicorn and a princess, and the Tree of Harmony is going awry. They assume that's because the elements have been away from the tree far too long, and that the tree is dying. So all the main six basically have to figure out that the tree itself is what's causing this, and that they have to return said elements to the tree, or all of Equestria, all of Equestria could possibly suffer from the damages of said tree dying out. Especially since the tree is as old as the sisters of Princess Celestia and Princess Luna. And eventually, Discord tries becoming a villain again, trying to take use of the tree's magic. It ends up failing him, and all of a sudden, at the end, a mysterious chest appears with 6 keyholes, to where they have to try to figure out where the keys are and what unlocks in said treasure chest. After that, it's Castle Mania, Episode 3, and that is. Basically, Twilight and the gang go to Celestia and Luna's old castle to research about the chest for the Tree of Harmony. They find a diary that was kept by the sisters, and all along the side, it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo parody, but along the side of that, it's Rainbow Dash and Applejack trying to challenge each other to stay the night in the castle, because they believe it's haunted by the ponies of shadows. But basically, it's basically multiple plots all working at once, but it all acts like a Scooby-Doo parody, from at least what some fans have said. And I never really caught that at first, but I definitely thought it was a pretty interesting episode, and it kind of foreshadowed the villain for Season 4, for the Season 4 finale, when you saw a mysterious looking eye appear at the before the episode goes black, before it ends the episode. Don't know why I had a hard time saying that. But anyway, they go through a lot of hijinks, traps, and devices, all trying to get there. With Rarity and Fluttershy trying to repair the tapestries. And again, Rainbow Dash and Applejack trying to do a contest, and then just overall Pinkie Pie just being random as much as she is, and Twilight just trying to investigate things. All in all, great episode. And I like how it starts continuing like a whole season story arc as well. Next episode of episode 4 is Daring Don't. And Rainbow Dash learns that the next Daring Do book will be delayed. She basically tries to figure out why, and then she finds out that the artist of the that the artist or the author of the books is actually Daring Do it herself, and that she's actually trapped, and she prefers to work alone, and she would and basically Rainbow Dash has to kind of teach her that she kind of does need teamwork every now and then. And that Daring Do actually does need help getting out of this task, and eventually it just winds up with them, learning from each other. And the new book comes out that was delayed, and it features a similar character of Rainbow Dash and Daring Do on the cover, which is something that Rainbow Dash herself is definitely fond of, especially since she's not only a fan of Daring Do for a while now, but now she knows that Daring Do actually exists. Episode 5 would be Flight to the Finish. And the Fillies and Colts in Ponyville compete under Rainbow Dash's coaching to be... Oh, this is a Cutie Mark Crusaders episode. And basically, Scootaloo is getting somewhat offended by the fact that she can't fly or hasn't learned to fly yet, or her wings aren't big enough to grow yet for her to fly. And she feels like that's going to get in the way of the Cutie Mark Crusaders flag carrier competition for them to see who would represent Ponyville to carry the flag. And everything just goes awry. Basically, their first attempt was their best one, but Scootaloo kind of gets lost in her ways, where she feels like it's not good enough because she can't fly, so she can't represent all Pegasi. And eventually ends with her basically learning her lesson. They go back to their old design, and they end up becoming the new flag carriers for the Equestria Games for the sake of Ponyville later on in the season. Like I said, I enjoy all the Cutie Mark Crusader episodes. I like how it's like a unique it's just a different atmosphere when they focus on the Cutie Mark Crusaders as opposed when they focus on the main 6 or another side character in the show. Episode 6 is actually one of my favorite ones. I don't know how a lot of other fans feel towards this one, but it's Power Ponies. And basically, the main 6 gets sucked inside Spike's comic book about superheroes. They eventually gain superpowers, like I'm trying to remember what all of them got, but anyway, I remember Fluttershy had the ability to become the Incredible Hulk. I think one had the ability to make tornadoes, but it was just a very interesting superpower episode for anybody that likes superheroes or team superhero movies or just superhero movies in general, or just grew up watching cartoons like Batman the Animated Series, Spider-Man, Superman the Animated Series, or just X-Men and all that. Anybody that grew up watching superhero shows as they were younger, I think this one definitely felt a little more close to those people, or at least I think that's what they were trying to go for. And I caught on to that, and I thought it was definitely a very interesting episode, while the whole time Spike thought that he was just a bumbling sidekick, when he realizes he's just as part of the team as everybody else in the main 6 is. It eventually ends with them getting out of the comic book, and they basically just... I think they just leave the comic book behind, or they just destroy the magic that caused it. I can't really remember, to be honest, but I thought it was just a great breakaway from the season overall episode. And like I said, definitely one of my favorites of the series overall. Next one is Bats, which introduces Flutterbat, and basically a bunch of fruit bats are infesting Sweet Apple Acres. And in the process, while she's trying to get the bats to go away, Fluttershy accidentally becomes a bat herself, and now the team have to find out how to reverse the effects. That way Fluttershy doesn't end up destroying Apple Acres the way that they thought the bats would. And it basically ends with a cliffhanger of you not knowing if if Fluttershy was completely cured or not. Seeing as how it shows that she still has the ability to sprout out her fangs. As the end of the episode, before the episode goes black, with all the main 6 characters laughing. Next one is Rarity Takes Manhattan, which actually has one of the interesting songs for the season. And this is where Rarity's generosity is put to the test. And she's going to Manhattan to support a friend, and she's also there to introduce her own line. She eventually finds that, basically throughout the course of the episode, you find out that Coco's desire for the whole recreation of the line isn't really as much as Rarity wants it to be. She kind of gets caught in her own way. She kind of almost abandons her friends and overworks her friends to where they kind of walk out on her. Eventually, Rarity sees the error of her ways, and then she also sees the errors of Coco's ways to help out her assistant. And in the end, it just reveals that the assistant won, and that's kind of what makes Rarity all the more happier. And in reward, the assistant kind of gives, I can't remember her name, Siri. Oh no, Coco was the A, Siri was the antagonist, sorry. But anyway, ends up Coco wins the competition. She gives Rarity a device, or she gives Rarity something for her to remember her, and that ends up being the key, one of the 6 keys later on in the season 4 finale. And I just thought, at first watch, that was an interesting episode. Then when you realize at the end of the season how important that episode and that key and that item was, definitely makes the episode all more interesting, and therefore the overall season all more interesting. The next episode is definitely a fan favorite for a lot of people. Or no, it's not. I get 2 titles mixed up, sorry. But this one definitely has the best. Episode 9, Pinkie Apple Pie. And basically, Pinkie Pie sees a genealogy scroll, which suggests that her and Applejack might be related. So her and the Apple family try to go to find the lost records of their genealogy to see if they are in fact related. It shows one of the best songs of the whole series, and definitely the best one of the season. We're apples together. We're apples together. Basically, it's just a whole Murphy's Law adventure while they try to go find the Apple descendant that has all the old records. Basically, ends with them going out and they can't really find any records, or it's just hard to read. And they decide to accept the fact that it is very much possible, and that regardless if it's true or not, that they do consider Pinkie Pie as a member of their family, and vice versa. Just kind of elaborating on the whole friendship and family sort of twist on it, and I just thought it was an overall pretty interesting episode. And like I said, it definitely had one of the better songs, if not the best song of the season. Alright, episode 10 is Rainbow Falls. And Rainbow Dash leads the Ponyville team for a relay race to qualify for the Equestria Games. At the tryout, she finds the Clydesdale teams composed of the Wonderbolts, oh, okay. I remember this one. She doesn't like the fact that she's with Snowball and Fluttershy. She feels like they would slow her down, and she's given the opportunity to work with the Wonder Colts, her dream team that she's always wanted to be a part of since she was young. And just by the end of the episode, she realizes that she needs to stick with her old friends, that as much as she wants to be with, this is basically the episode where her loyalty is put up to the test. And at the end, she ends up deciding to work with Snowball and Fluttershy instead of working with the Wonder Colts, and in return she gets a reward for it, which is a Wonderbolt pin, and that ends up being again one of the keys to unlock the chest for the season finale. And I just thought it was definitely an interesting episode. It was definitely one of those episodes where you feel like you've seen the plot before, but for some reason My Little Pony Friendship's Magic just does it in a weird twist that it makes it either somewhat nostalgic or acceptable, or you just feel like you're seeing the whole thing all over again for the first time. Or that didn't make sense. It feels like yeah, okay. I guess that's the best way I can describe it, even though that doesn't make any sense. Episode 11, Three's a Crowd. And Princess Cadence visits Ponyville to spend the day with Fluttershy. Okay, this is basically they're trying to Cadence and Twilight are trying to hang out together, seeing as how they're both princesses with responsibilities now. Seeing as how Cadence is the princess of the Crystal Empire, they try to plan a day for them to hang out together. And next thing you know, Discord is down with the flu, and it's up to the Alicorns, Cadence and Twilight to help him. And it ends up being to the fact that it's very implied that he wasn't really actually sick the whole time, but he ends up being sick at the end because of his shenanigans and everything that he does and everything that he puts them through. And they kind of, the two princesses kind of accept it as they see that it was, it still managed for them to hang out and have fun together, even though they were still somewhat manipulated by Discord in the process. The next episode is Pinkie Pride, and this is the one that a lot of fans really like. This is the one with Weird Al Yankovic playing Cheese Sandwich. And this one has a whole array of songs. It's basically celebrating Rainbow Dash's birthday and anniversary from when she moved to Ponyville. And she's just trying to have, Pinkie Pie wants to throw the party. All of a sudden, Cheese Sandwich comes in. It feels like he's stealing her thunder. Pinkie gets kind of jealous and all that, and then eventually, just after a whole array of songs, a whole array of craziness with a lot of weird party planning and everything, especially for the fact that one of it's a goof off to see who would headline the birth anniversary as well. And it basically just ends with them both being the winners, and she's revealing that it was Pinkie Pie when he was young, or that inspired him to go around all of Ponyville and all of Equestria, for that matter, and just throw parties for people and just leave having a good time, because Pinkie Pie did that in his town once, and it just made him realize what his special talent was. And I just thought it was a very heartfelt episode, and again, with all the aforementioned craziness and songs and all that, I can definitely, and the fact that there's Weird Al Yankovic in it, I can definitely tell why it's a very strong fan favorite album, fan favorite episode. And I can definitely say for myself that I think it's definitely one of the better episodes, and I think one of the reasons why season 4 stands out so well. Episode 13, Simple Ways. And Rarity is elected to host the Ponyville Days Festival, which she hopes will attract the attention of Tenderhoof, a trendsetter who she... Okay, I remember this. Well, this is basically Rarity falls for the Trenderhoof, and the next thing you know, Trenderhoof, it seems like Trenderhoof finds more in common, or actually has more of an interest for Applejack, to the point that it's just a whole jealousy game for Rarity, and that Applejack, it's just a whole Applejack versus Rarity episode in the end. Eventually, in the end, Rarity realized she was foolish for being jealous of Applejack, and they ended up making amends. And because of because of the whole thing that went on during the episode, not only is she able to return back to the festival in time, but she's able to actually have an idea of what to do for the theme, and it ends up just ends up being a good theme, and it ends up with Thunderhoof walking off. I think Rarity gets the acceptance, and of course Applejack and Rarity are friends once again. Alright, episode 14, Philly Vanilli. And basically this episode, Macintosh's voice goes out, so Fluttershy decides to fill in, seeing as how there's a plant that can make her voice sound deeper. And even though she's stage fright and she's shy, she likes the fact that she's able to sing in front of sing in front of an audience, even though the audience can't see her and she can't see them. She eventually wants everybody to, every opportunity that they get to perform, she wants them to do, even though she's never really seen. And eventually just gets her to come out of her own stage fright and build more and more of Fluttershy becoming more of a confident pony instead of the namesake of her name, just the shy pony that is just afraid of almost anything that moves. Definitely a great episode, and It's one of the better decent follow-ups to Pinkie Pride. I definitely like the episode. Definitely rereading it, and I just like the fact how they did a play on words of an old lip syncing group in the '80s called Milli Vanilli. And like I said, I just thought the overall episode was actually pretty good, especially since it was about overcoming stage fright. I think anybody can kind of relate to that episode to some degree. Episode 15, Twilight Time, and basically. The Q Market traders start bragging to Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon that they know the princess Twilight, and it basically leads to this whole publicity thing to say where they want to spend time with Twilight, but they're actually just trying to get pictures and evidence that they do know Twilight and they are close friends with her for Diamond and Silver, and it just leads to. I'm surprised, honestly, in Twilight's shoes, I'm surprised she didn't get as upset as I thought she would. She was actually very forgiving very quickly, even though she did admit she was disappointed in him. Eventually, it's with them just apologizing to each other, and they just basically go back to their they just kind of go back to their old ways, and they end up deciding to take up the lessons that Twilight was going to teach them in the beginning of the episode. And they decided to take it more seriously, and not only that, more secretly. That way nobody does know. That way they don't risk getting carried away and causing the whole publicity thing that just happened throughout the whole episode already. Definitely great, interesting, again, Q Mark Sanders episode, and I like how this one kind of connected both the main six character with the Q Mark Strangers, especially with the main six character that has little to no relation to any of the Cutie Mark Crusaders as well. Episode 16 is It Ain't Easy Being Breezies. And Fluttershy and her friends help a flock of fairy-like breezies migrate through Ponyville by creating a breeze the breezies need to fly to. You find out a lot of them don't really want to go, or at least one of them doesn't want to go, and Fluttershy kind of wants to hide him and keep him as a pet. But eventually, just leads to Fluttershy having to let him go, having to get him back to his own place, mainly because he needs to be with his fellow breezies, and it's just a whole don't get attached and just learn to let go sort of story. And I just definitely thought the imagery of the breezies were actually pretty interesting, and I like any good Fluttershy episode, especially if it progresses her being a more bolder pony than she was back in season 1, episode 1, and so on. Episode 17, Some Pony to Watch Over Me. Excuse me. And Apple Bloom's family believes that she's old enough to stay alone at the farm while the three of them go on various errands, including pie deliveries across Equestria. Don't know why I have a hard time saying that. Shortly after leaving, Applejack has second thoughts and returns home. Her sudden appearance startling Apple Bloom into making an accidental mess. So basically it's just a whole big sister, little sister thing to where the big sister can't really accept the fact that her little sister is growing up and no longer the little sister anymore. And it's just a very interesting Sisters episode, and it's kind of different from how the Sweetie Belle Rarity Sister episode was done seasons earlier. I just thought it was a very interesting episode. I like the whole big sibling, little sibling take on this, and I definitely like the fact how it just kind of showed a level of maturity for Apple Bloom, and in doing so, a level of maturity for Applejack as well. And definitely a great watchable episode when I first saw it, and I think definitely a great watchable episode to see again, especially since chaos, and especially since it has its usual chaos ensues. There's a minor enemy involved, and all of a sudden, before the end of the episode, everything's just back to normal again with lessons learned and everything. Next episode 18, is Mud Pie. And Pinkie Pie's sister, Mud Pie, is visiting Ponyville. All of the main six try to become friends with Mud Pie, but they feel like they don't know anything to connect to her, especially since Mud Pie has a weird obsession with rocks and boulders. eventually ends with the main six accepting their differences between them and Mud Pie, and they decide that even though they are different from one another, they do have one common thing together, and that is they are both very fond of Pinkie Pie, and they believe that is just enough connection there needs to be in order for them to be friends. And even Mud Pie is ecstatic about it, according to Pinkie, and it's just a great introduction to a character that was definitely a huge fan favorite character for a good season and a half or so. And I think it's still probably a very funny fan-made character, especially since she's made other appearances in later seasons and in one of the Equestria Girls movies as well. Next one is episode 19, From Whom the Tweety Belle Toils. And Tweety Belle asks Rarity to help with her costumes for the stage play to put together herself. After the play, Tweety Belle finds that Rarity's dresses garnered more praise in the play itself, and accuses Rarity of upstaging her. So it's kind of another sequel to the whole sisterhood thing, and this one definitely retouches on Tweety Belle and Rarity again. And it's just a whole overcoming jealousy episode again. It's just don't know why I can't talk. Just overcoming jealousy and accepting that even though you are from the same branch, or if you guys are working under the same thing, there's different interests involved, and there's different talents that somebody may have, and if one gets overlooked more than the other, doesn't mean one's better than the other necessarily. It just means I don't know. I probably lost myself saying that, but I guess more than anything, it's just if you don't end up being the best one, don't let it affect you. Don't get too carried away with it, and it's never worth losing the value of friendship or family, getting carried away with feeling like you're being the second banana, or feeling like you're being upstaged, or feeling like somebody you know deep down is tricking you, when really it's just the audience's approval and just what the audience is touching on the most. And I feel like I probably could have gone way a lot better explaining that one, but I'm sorry. Episode 20, Leap of Faith. This brings back the Flim Flam brothers, and they basically come out with this new tonic that says that it makes you feel young again. Granny Smith and everybody else gets it. Eventually, Applejack finds out that this isn't true, but however, she sees how happy it's making Granny feel, and so she feels to go along with it until it starts getting a little hectic for Grannyville, and she starts doing or starts wanting to do dangerous stunts. To eventually, this is basically Applejack's put to the test episode, and she just finds out that it's better to be honest and admit that it's just a placebo effect, that it's just a tonic, that is not really a magical tonic. As opposed to making somebody feel better about themselves, even though it's just them. It's not something they're drinking, let alone the fact that it's not worth putting yourself into dangerous situations for, and it's just it's not worth being held responsible for if you know said information put together. And in the end, she gets a silver coin as a gift, and that becomes one of the keys for the treasure chest in the later season, or for the later season finale. Episode 21, Testing 1, 2, 3. And Twilight worries that Rainbow Dash is unprepared for a test on the history of the Wonderbolts as part of the entrance exam to join. So basically, she has to pass the test in order to become a reserve for the Wonderbolts. Basically, there's almost nothing that she can really learn to tune herself until they find out that she's very observant of everything around her, so they use that as a method to teach her the history of the Wonderbolts, and it ends up making Rainbow Dash pass the test, and it just finds out that she, even her herself, like many of her other friends, has her own unique way of remembering things and studying for things that she may need to know for the future. any Rainbow Dash episode is definitely a good episode in my opinion, but that's just because, again, I've said this in other videos, I just kind of find Rainbow Dash to be my favorite character of the show. And that was definitely kind of put to the test with coincidentally, the next episode, Trade You, where the ponies attend the Rainbow Falls Traders Exchange. Basically, Fluttershy helps Rainbow Dash acquire a rare daring do book, though it goes through a long array of trades. Eventually, in the process, Fluttershy ends up getting traded, and I'll try the first time. Rainbow Dash realizes how wrong that was and how it's not worth getting the thing that she was wanting to go for if it means losing a friend in the process. So she basically trades everything back in order to get Fluttershy. And in the end, she actually gives Fluttershy the thing Fluttershy was trying to get early on in the episode. And they make amends, and they just have a good time on their way home. And it's just a very interesting episode. I love the classic, I'll trade you this if you give me these episodes, especially with the Ed and Eddie episode that did that as well, where they were trying to get an egg and they had to spend the whole episode trying to get an egg. And this one just kind of, even though it's a little different in an atmosphere of that, especially near the end, I just thought it was definitely a good trade-off episode, and I definitely like the episode, especially since, again, it's a Rainbow Dash episode. And my second favorite character would probably be Fluttershy, and just the fact that a good portion of the story focuses on these is a pretty good episode. And along the side, you get you get Rarity and Applejack trying to fight off each other to see which one has the better stash or so or not. Like I said, definitely an interesting episode, if not one of the lighter ones, but still a favorite one for me, in my opinion. Episode 23, after that, is Inspiration Manifestation. And Rarity believes her creativity is lost when a puppet stage she designed is rejected by her customer. Spike, concerned for Rarity, finds an old book. Okay, this is basically Rarity kind of gets a little too obsessed and mad with power, and Spike feels responsible for it. It's a Spike Rarity episode, and it just ends with Spike being the one to save Rarity from her own disaster, kind of mirroring the effect of season 1 or season 2, where Spike got a little too mad with power with his gems and his birthday, and Rarity had to be the one to save him. I like the fact how the roles switched with this one. It was something that Rarity was interested in, such as a puppet stage event. And it just basically ends with Rarity going back to normal thanks to Spike. And basically they both make amends. And again, it's just a great mirror role switched episode. And it's just always fun seeing a character go from innocent to and just to see the touch on this show, and just for the even though it's not a mutual love interest, the fact that the love interest was one to save it, which is a cliche thing, I know, but I just thought all in all it was actually a pretty interesting episode, and I don't know, I liked it. I know I keep repeating myself when I say that, but like I said, I just liked the episode. Next thing you know, episode 24, Equestria Games. The event that you've been waiting for since almost a whole season and a half now. And Spike is chosen as the torchlighter for the Equestrian Games in recognition of his role as saving the Crystal Empire. At the opening ceremony, Spike succumbs to his performance anxiety and is unable to ignite his fire breath. To save him from embarrassment, Twilight discreetly uses her magic to light the torch for him. I take it Spike just gets a little too out of control. Hold on, let me finish the episode real quick. When Twilight tells him the truth, he tries to find other ways to help in the ceremonies, like trying to sing a national anthem that he doesn't know, or just trying to help people out and ends up making matters worse. And basically, throughout a whole array of effects, a giant ice monster is created. Or just a giant mass of ice is created, threatening to crush the entire stadium. Spike comes in, uses his flame that he was trying to ignite the torch with earlier, and just extinguishes and melts the ice before it hits the stadium, and he's once again recognized as a hero. and he is able to light the torch finally because his anxiety is out of his way. And it's just definitely a very interesting Spike episode. I like how it's like 2 back-to-back Spike episodes in a row. And again, I just like this whole. I like Spike. I mean, I like all the episodes, but I like how they do different sort of atmospheres for each of the different characters. And then doing this one for Spike, even though it was Equestria Games, something that again that was talked about since later season 3, definitely has an interesting twist to the whole story arc building up to that. And it makes for a great second to last episode for the season, because then you go on to the 2-parter, which is Twilight's Kingdom. And Twilight, in this episode, Twilight feels like she's not really as much as a princess as Princess Luna is, as Princess Celestia is, or as Princess Cadence is. Basically, they all try to tell her that she does actually have her own role, but she doesn't really know it. However, in the meantime, a monster named Herrick is threatening to, hopefully I'm getting the name right. Yes, a monster named Herrick is trying to overcome Equestria. He's been released for Tartarus. He was the eyed monster you saw in Castlemania. And, oh no, it's just how he made a Discord kind of turn evil again to help him work for him. You find out the whole items that they were given throughout the whole season ended up being gifts for... the items they were given for the whole season ended up being the keys for their treasure chest. They unlock the treasure chest. They unlock their rainbow power, which I actually had no problem with. I actually kind of liked that. But, I mean, you haven't really seen that much of it since. But I do remember seeing a lot of fans like it, and then near the end it became positive reviews to positive to mixed reviews. So, I don't know. I'd be honest, it'd be nice to kind of see that again, but who's to say that just wasn't like a special event sort of thing. I love how everybody kind of compared it to Dragon Ball Z. It was definitely an interesting 2-parter, and definitely a very great season finale, probably one of the best ones still. And in the whole process, Twilight's library treehouse gets destroyed, and in place of it becomes her new castle, to where she is now dubbed the Princess of Friendship. So now not only is she a princess and an alicorn, she now actually has a princess and a title and a castle to live for. And like I said, I just thought it was a great, interesting way to end the season. I thought it was interesting how they ended season 3 with her becoming an alicorn, and they decided to end this season with her becoming the Princess of Friendship with her own castle and everything. And like I said, I just thought overall season 4 was a great season with all the individual episodes I just mentioned. And like I said, definitely my 3rd best season. And I think like everybody else, because at that point I was finally caught up with the series, I was waiting the whole 10 months for the next season to begin. And I think everybody was just as excited and hyped up for the in between months for season 4 and season 5, just because of how season 4 ended its series. And even today, the 26th episode of season 4, Twilight's Kingdom Part 2, is still the most watched episode of the series. And I think it's kind of fascinating and honorable that it does have that as its most watched episode for the series, because I think it's definitely a great transitional episode, and it just definitely leads on to bigger and better things for the rest of the series, like the series has done since season 1. Anyway, that is my review of season 4 of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Thank you for mustering through all this. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. I hope you guys enjoy the season just in general, whether I review it or not. And with that being said, again, have a good one, and peace out and bro hoof.